The final two basic terms in medical anthropology that are directly related to illness, disease, and sickness are curing and healing. So in the same way that disease focuses on the biomedical body, on the biological body, physiological body, curing refers also very narrowly and very specifically to the physiological body. Curing then is simply the alleviation of the disease. So if disease's focus is an abnormality on a physiological, biological level, then curing is when that disease no longer exists. It's simply the removal of the disease. And so, just like disease is the domain of biomedicine, so is curing. So biomedicine is very focused on the physiological body and the and abnormalities that happen on a physiological level, and then the curing that happens on a physiological level. Healing is distinguished from curing. It could include curing, though it doesn't have to, but healing is a process, and it has two steps. The first step of healing is turning physical abnormalities and or socially worrisome conditions, in other words, illness and disease, into sickness, and that is part of the healing process. So the first step of healing is turning worrisome conditions, whether they're physiological, social, or both, into sickness. In other words, giving it meaning for the sufferer. So the sufferer understands that what they have has meaning, has cultural sense that makes sense to them. That's the first step of healing. The second part of the healing process is where the sufferer gains a degree of satisfaction through the reduction or elimination of the psychological, sensory, and experiential oppressiveness engendered by their illness and disease. What that says is that in order for healing to happen, curing could be part of the process, but it doesn't have to be. The idea is that the sufferer gains a degree of satisfaction. They come to terms with, they understand, and they overcome in some way the sickness experience. Now, most of the time, and I'm sure in most cultures, the ideal healing would be where both the disease and the illness, if both existed, are no longer there, and the body, the whole body, both the physiological and the social body, are allowed to return to full health. And that is certainly one form of healing, but it's not limited to that. Healing could also include not getting rid of the illness and not even getting rid of the disease, but coming to terms with that experience. There's all kinds of really wonderful cultural examples of it, but if we just stick to the West, a hospice environment where someone acknowledges and comes to terms with the fact that they might have a long-term and incurable disease might be part of the healing process. And maybe in that context we might say that though the disease still lives in their body, the illness no longer does, because maybe they don't feel a sense of oppressiveness or a socially disvalued state, perhaps because they've come to terms with their disease, perhaps because they're able to put it in a different compartment and focus on other things. Whatever it is, from a medical anthropological perspective, we would say that healing happened in that context.